It warrants our undivided attention. So we'll continue to talk about these issues. Okay? For those of you who are watching, please spread this video, and I apologize for the break. Let's see what's going to happen. Hopefully this time we are going to stay connected. Please join me on the live show. Sir Junior, welcome to the program. It's always good to see you on the program. It's always good to see you on the program. So whilst we're waiting for people to rejoin, let's warm up the floor. Let's warm up the floor. While a good number of people was watching, we've lost them. The thing about music like this, or songs like this rather, is when professional artists sing, it does not only relate to the side of the story, it's broad-based. We had made a good development. Now we are going to have to start all over again, having lost almost everybody. This is the bittersweet of technology. The bittersweet of technology. Can we help to share this video so we can get people on very quickly so that we can proceed, please? Please use your wider network to help to share this video. Thank you very much. All right. While we're hoping to develop that number of people we had on the channel, I can tell you that Mr. Mohamed Kamara is back. This is the bittersweet of technology. I was in full flow and the guest was in full flow. Unfortunately, we had a disruption, but the show must go on, because these are very important issues that are meant to be discussed, and we're definitely going to be discussing these issues. So, Mr. Kamara, you were in full flow before we lost you. I guess you can start off where you were, or do you want me to give you a cue?
Yeah, I think I'll start all over again, isn't it? I think we lost the first beats, isn't it? So it's probably better for us to start all over again.
Just where you were, I mean, are things working? Because what I was trying to say is, you sound like you were accusing the government, although you said this is not what you were doing, but by implication, by inferring, it does sound so. But the government will be doing the same thing, telling you that you are actually the one responsible for destabilizing the peace, that all they want to do is to carry on with governance, that everything going wrong, you've got your footprint on it. That's what they will be telling you instead of the other way around. What do you say to that?
That's even, that's funny to say the least, because you cannot say the opposition is responsible to hold the government to account. And the opposition parties are doing exactly that. They will critique the government when they know they've adopted policies that are not favorable for the development of the country. And I think that's what the opposition has been doing effectively. Let's look at where it all started. When the government came in, I think for some conditionalities given to them by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, that they should withdraw the subsidies for fuel and rice. And these are key basic commodities for the general population. The opposition came out and spoke strongly against that, advised the government, admonished the government that this would be a wrong move, because the fuel is like the engine of the economy. If the fuel price goes up, all other basic commodities price will eventually goes up, and you will have serious inflation. And more besides, we've seen exactly that. It's now we can easily call it as an hyperinflation in the country, and it's affected everything else in the whole country. So these are all, I think, good ideas that the opposition brought together in the table and tried to advise the government, even pleaded with the government, that please, government, the SLP people, don't do this because it's not going to be good for the country. So I think the opposition has been completely constructive. And don't forget, it's the opposition that have been attacked for even being in the office. I know people were making allegations that were demonstrating outside about the pictures we saw. And even one of the credible journalists in Sierra Leone was Mr. Umar Fofana was there. He said he saw the opposition party members in their office singing and their party songs and stuff like that. And with no notice, he saw police officers approaching the party office. So this is a
Mr. Kamara, yes, this is what the reputable journalist Umaru Fofana said. But the government has equally got a responsibility, because probably the police could have been acting on a tip-off, on an information from the inside. They normally call intelligence. So instead of allowing that crowd that was building up to stray out to the streets, because you could actually see few people out in the streets singing their party songs and etc. And that was, to some degree, some kind of a public nuisance. So the police had a right to move in to see or observe what is going on. So there was nothing wrong. You're not saying there was anything wrong with police approaching the head office of the opposition party, are you?
Yeah, I'm saying that is completely wrong, because you have to police by consent. You can talk to the people, but the fact that the people were standing there singing in their party office is their absolute right. This is a democratic state. They have the right.
No, Mr. Kamara. I don't think the government was saying that they are not supposed to sing within the confines of their office, in the fence that belongs to them. But what I'm saying is, some of them were actually outside in the streets and disturbing public peace, if you will like, because there are other people that don't share the same objectives with them. So they could have done all of this within their party confines. But the facts here remain, because we've seen it in video evidence, that some of them were actually in the streets.
Yeah, well, I think the video evidence we saw is after the police approach. But what we got, this is one of the most credible journalists we've had in the country, and he's been here for years. He said he was there 2 hours prior to the police coming there, and he didn't see any sort of public nuisance or any misbehaving on the side of the APC party. The APC party supporters, we are in the party office. Okay, you will have 1 or 2 people standing outside, but again, that is their right, yes, within the confines of the office. They didn't go. Don't forget, there was a big decision taken by the court that goes against the APC party. But yes, still, the APC party, we are within the confine of the party office, celebrating, singing their party songs. I think they have absolute rights to do that. And this is confirmed, is collaborated by one of the most credible journalists in the country. And in fact, we saw many other videos during that particular day wherein the people were in the office singing their song, party songs. I think, again, I repeat, they have the rights to do it. This is a national party. It's not like they've done something against the rule of law. No, they have the right to gather in their party office, to have meetings here, to sing, to do whatever they want to do within the confines of their party office. As far as it's not breaching the peace, which, I mean, obviously, like I repeat again, a credible journalist in our country working for the BBC himself stated clearly that I was there 2 hours prior, and I haven't seen any disturbances from these people. So I was surprised. I caught what he said. He said he was surprised that he saw the police approaching that party office. This is what he said. He stated that quite clearly.
Yeah, but again, yeah, Mr. Fofana will have stated that. But like I said earlier, there could have been potentially a need for the police to approach the office, not violate the premises. I mean, or trespass the offices. But the police has got a right to be on the streets. So they could have been acting on intelligence. It's what happened after, I think, is what the issue. Now I want to ask you, and before I ask my next question, I just want to bring it to the knowledge of the guest that we know the views of Mr. Kamara very, very well. Mr. Kamara is a strong member of the All People's Congress. To juxtapose his position, okay, I sent out a request to several party members and government officials to see whether potentially they can appear on this podium, but up to press time as we speak now, none of them ever came back to me. Hence why we've got 2 of the people who possibly will be speaking as against the government and actions taken by the government so far. I just need a clarification, Mr. Kamara, in terms of one last question on the issue of protest. There are accusations that tires were being burnt. I have spoken to many people and all they've said, tires were being burnt. And every time I ask the question regarding, photographic evidence of tires being burnt, I've never had them up to the point that I'm speaking to you. What is your take, or what have you heard from your party officials in terms of whether tires were being burnt and the rest of it in the streets of Freetown prior to police crackdown on the protesters?
Okay, thank you, Brother Prince, again. And before I go any further, I just want to say to your viewers again, although I'm a APC party member, I'm also a very patriotic Sierra Leonean who analyze issues as I see them to the best of my ability. And let me go again to this police issue, because according to the APC party secretariat, they said they had a meeting with the police, and the police, if they wanted to have sent anybody there, they should have informed them that, okay, for certain reason, we send in security to your office. But that never happened. And even the party secretary general tried that same fateful morning to contact the Inspector General of Police and the Deputy Inspector General of Police, but he couldn't get all of them. You know, and it's quite clear. I mean, people are saying tires were, but I didn't see anything like that. And I go again back to Mr. Umaru Fofana, who himself said it, and he was even there. We can see from the videos, he was even helping to negotiate with the police and the party secretariat. We can see Mr. Umaru Fofana was even there. Even the party secretary was was talking to him to help negotiate. The deputy chairman of the party was there as well, trying to negotiate with the police. But these people, some of them live in the party office. Some of these people live there. You see, it's not about, and some people go there to do the business. That's their point of contact. So these people were forcefully removed out of their residence, which was in itself was very, very illegal, you know. And we have to be categorically clear that what the police did was very heavily handed, and the government itself, in their own wisdom, should have condemned the action of the police.
Okay, Mr. Kamara, I want to go back to the Bintumani conference just for a minute or two. And this is to talk about your party's position on Bintumani conference. Will you clarify your party's position? Because what we are understanding, or what reaching my desk at the time, was your official position was not to attend the Bintumani conference. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the official position, not to attend.
So then I want to move on to the attendance of Mr. Alpha Khan, who is not just an ordinary member, but a heavyweight within the party, the All People's Congress. What is the party's position? Because it's been weeks now since he attended the conference, in which when he spoke, he said that he was there in his private capacity. But what is the party's position regarding the attendance of Mr. Alpha Khan? And what's your position or your take on his attendance? Does your party have any official position on the attendance of Mr. Alpha Khan at the Bintumani conference?
Well, it was good that Mr. Alpha Khan himself said he attended in his capacity as a private citizen. Our party.
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah,
our party, yes. Our party, the official position is that nobody is going to represent us in that particular conference, because we stated the reasons quite clearly. You know, you couldn't call for a peace conference wherein you frog marching and members are legitimately elected members of parliament to court every day, wherein our people are constantly being intimidated up and down the country, wherein legal elections that we win, we are stolen away from us, and all the other instances, so many of them, wherein some of our party supporters have been thrown away from the jobs because they are party supporters. So there are many reasons that we stated why we're not going to be part and parcel of that conference. And you cannot call for a conference like that and just expect people to go and speak. You'd have to, the people or whatever the key stakeholders had to be part and parcel of the mechanism of the conference. You know, they have to speak, you have to call them to set out the remit of the conference, what you want to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, how the conference is going to run. This is the way I think you can organize a peace conference wherein you got different political parties and stakeholders. All of them could have come together and discuss how that particular conference will have worked out together, but that never happened. So we think, well, it doesn't make any sense for us just to go and attend and just legitimize what maybe the government was trying to do. Say, oh, we got all the people here to come and show. It's like we thinking that was just a show trial or something. So we don't want to legitimize Short's conference. We believe we're peace-loving Sierra Leoneans. We always abide by the rule of law in that country. And we don't even think the conference was necessary if everybody in the country abide by the rules and regulations as enshrined in our constitution.
But I mean, people will find that really contradictory, because one of your heavyweight, even though he said in his personal capacity, did attend, the meeting or the conference. And by so doing, what you're saying, like it wasn't legitimate or right or not at the proper timing, but he was there. And by him attending, he borrowed or gave some legitimacy to the conference in behalf of your party, regardless of him being there, because this is how some people, they see it or saw it, that the idea that he was there, sort of gives some credibility to the conference. And the fact is, APC was there, and people are beginning to draw lines saying that probably he was actually sent there by the party, even though the party was saying their official line is not to attend.
No, it's quite clear that the party hasn't sent anybody to that particular conference. And the thing is, our party is a broad church. Our party is a democratic party. We don't control each and any individual, what their action, what they are going to do. So it's a broad church. We've got different members up and down the country, east, west, north, and south. People with different ideas. The party is a very tolerant party. It's a democratic party. People have their different views. But the key factor, the key objective of our party is one of our aims and objectives is constructive nationalism. So we believe that through the grassroots, we believe bottom up, not up down, but bottom up. We believe everybody. That's why you see the subsequent meeting before the conference, there were lots of people at the party office, grassroots people, and so many other people from all walks of life. And the deputy chairman in the microphone openly clearly asked them, say, are we going to go to the conference? And it was overwhelmingly clear. The people said, no, we're not going to go to the conference because we don't think this conference is sincere enough. We don't think the government is sincere in calling this conference. And in the first place, we don't think this conference is necessary. All what we are asking the authority or the government to do is to respect the rule of law. They are supposed to be the protector of the rule of law in that country. So they just need to respect it and treat everybody under that particular remit.
Okay, Mr. Kamara. Obviously, we all know where you stand. Again, once more, within the political realm of the country, I'm talking about the political divide. But you also are saying, or alluding to the fact that you're also a patriot, never mind that you're a member of the opposition party. So some things are there that you're going to do that or say that should be sounding patriotic. But you never seem to have a good word for this government, like places or things that they could be doing, which is just right. Do you?
No, I did. I mean, I don't know if you remember back a few months ago, well, over a year ago now, I said the idea for what I call the tax funded education that people refer to as free education, I say it's a good idea. But
Mr. Kamara, I'm almost remembering word for word all the interviews that I've had with you. And sometimes I do review this tape. So yes, you did. But the problem there is, you will spend like 30 seconds. It sounds almost like a sound bite, like what you are talking about, the free quality education. And then straight away, you go into almost ad hominem, verbal attacks, condemning the same exercise, and you've got like 100 reasons that you will give as to why it is negative, even though you've said, in 30 seconds or even sometimes 20 seconds to say, this is good, but. So people don't see that, as, upholding the values of patriotism.
No, well, I think we have to be honest to ourselves and say things as how they're supposed to be said. There's no point in covering things up and making them as if they are how they're supposed to be. It was very clear when they came up with that policy that many of us applauded the policy. And we said, for that policy to work, the government has to be careful how it is going to be spread out all over in the country. Like, for instance, the infrastructure. We need to have schools. We need to have the facility. We need to make sure we look after the teachers. We need to have so many other things. I said, so it should be in an incremental stage. That maybe you start it with one region, slowly, and you build it up.
Let's not go too deep in the past in terms of what you said, because we need to make progress. And Mr. Conte, of course, you've got a right to stay and listen, and you've got a right to go. But sometimes it's good to give people their due, you know. And you cannot make judgment based on just reading the cover of the book. And this is not Alice in Wonderland, where you can choose to interpret, you know, yeah, the words that somebody is saying. So it will be good to give somebody their fair shake or listen. You know, sometimes they may just be right or going towards somewhere where at least you will understand. Mr. Kamara, the COI, I guess you know those 3 letters which has become very famous in the country.
Yes, certainly.
To some degree, yes, sir. To some degree, it is working, isn't it? It is holding your former officials accountable for things that they did in the past, which, according to the government or the COI, is not right. So therefore, they are holding them accountable. And by many people, it is working. What do you say?
Well, thank you again, Brother Prince. I think that's the problem with corruption in the country. Everybody knows. The APC party said it quite clearly that they want to fight corruption. They are against corruption because corruption is a cancer in our country and it's not going to help us develop that country.
But you never did it when you were you never did it when you were in power. So how would you be saying now that you want to fight corruption? It's the other side that is in power now, which is advocating that corruption must be fought, isn't it?
Okay, thank you very much again, Brother Prince. I think I need to correct that. It is the strengthening of the ACC is done by the APC. The APC party built the infrastructure to fight corruption in that country. And we saw during the APC party, even ministers were uprooted from their ministry and brought to the anti-corruption commissioner. I don't know if you've, I think the one prominent minister was Afsatu Kaba. I think if I don't forget her name.
Yes, Afsatu, but again, people will say, when you take a holistic look at the exercise, it sounded more like an academic exercise. Yes, it did have some teeth, but it never had grit enough, because there are people who say that the commissioner then, he was being paid more than what he recouped from corrupt officials. So they never took it seriously. This is the accusation. So yes, there was a structure, you know, yeah, called the ACC, but it never really had the grit, you know, yeah, to bring everybody, not everybody, but most people, you know, who were meant to have been, you know, yeah, called to give account for corrupt practices.
Okay, thank you again, Brother Prince. I always want to say this. Before we be able to fight corruption effectively in our country, we have to build infrastructure. Let me give you an example. Like now you live in the United Kingdom. If you're not paying your taxes, you are like a self-employed guy. The tax people can go to the bank and see how your money, your intake goes into your account and everything. So the infrastructure is there to question you. How comes, Mr. Prince, you got 10, 20,000 in your account? Where do you get this 10, 20,000 from? Why do you pay the correct taxes on this one? So the infrastructure is there. And that's what we were saying before, long ago, that we need to build the infrastructure in the country so that we'll be able to effectively fight corruption as well. But again, going back to the COI itself came into effect in an unconstitutional way. We all remember when the president sent some constitutional instruments that set up the COI into parliament. Those constitutional instruments were illegal in the first place. You cannot fight illegality with illegality, I always say. And that was very clear. They sent those through and they bulldozed them through
how was it, for the benefit of the audience, how was it legal? Because I believe, if my memory serves me right, this was sent to parliament. And it was parliament that, you know, yeah, brought this entire exercise about, that the articles of the COI became a legal article. It was on that basis, isn't it? So what
it was on that basis, because Parliament could only kick that one out if they had a 2/3 majority. But that particular bill was defeated in terms of numbers, but they couldn't have the 2/3 majority. And the parliamentarians by then stated quite clearly that this particular instruments were illegal and they are unconstitutional.
Mr. Kamara, it will have been your parliamentarians. That will be the All People's Congress parliamentarians. But the fact here belies that they lost out, you know, yet due to some technicalities inside the wells of parliament. And therefore, that's what happened. You could see it unfairly because you are the one on the receiving end, but it came from parliament and they failed to achieve the 2/3 majority.
No, it's not about the seeing it unfairly. I know they didn't get the two-third majority. That's quite clear. But even regardless with the two-third majority, it has to be constitutional first. You doesn't go about say, okay, because it's two-third majority, the opposition will not be able to get two-third majority. Let's just bulldoze anything we want to bulldoze. That's why you find out the parliamentarians quite clearly stated in that rigorous debates that these particular instruments are unconstitutional. They're illegal. They shouldn't even be in parliament in the first place. So that was one of the reasons why the APC party made a clear statement that they're not going to subject themselves to this particular commission of inquiry. And up to now, they stand by it. And again, that commission of inquiry, we haven't seen any fruitful case that come out with all the allegations that they come out with. You remember at the time they said,
a lot of people, I suppose, will disagree with you that the APC said they will not subject themselves to the COI, which is a legal instrument as far as the country and the current leadership is concerned. And the records show that a number of All People's Congress people have been subjected, to answer to the COI, and that includes the Secretary General of the party, whom I know very well, who is being asked, over I think three times, and many other, former officials. So how would you say it sounds like a contradiction? Like, okay, it's not a legal entity according to the All People's Congress. You don't expect them to say because they are the receiving end, but the COI is up and functioning and holding people into account.
Yes, thank you again, Brother Prince. I think maybe we're mistaken two things here. The ACC and the COI is different. I think the Secretary was invited.
I do understand that, Mr. Supermed. Of course, the ACC, okay, just to clarify, is historic. It deals with historic corrupt cases and the rest of it. And that makes the COI the opposite, to the ACC. But the COI is up and working, and that was my original question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up and working, but you've never seen any of the party, APC party, the former ministers appeared in the COI. They haven't appeared. Their lawyers go there, and even when the lawyer goes there, they always state that our clients are not subjecting to this particular commission of inquiry because they believe this commission of inquiry is unconstitutional. They believe categorically that it was unconstitutional. And they've stated how you cannot make a law that contravenes the previous law when the previous law has not been amended. So the previous law says if you have a commission of inquiry, a court, it has to be equivalent to a high court. So if it has to be equivalent to a high court, the rule of evidence should apply. But this COI does not want the rule of evidence to apply. So automatically they contravene the Constitution.
So you are in effect saying that the government has got a white elephant project in terms of the COI, in which massive amounts of taxpayers' money is being spent almost on a daily basis and covering the cost and expenses of the court itself, including salaries of those that are running the court. So you are saying that this is just a futile exercise and is still going on, even though the 6 months mandate, I believe, has expired.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, my brother. Let me give you one example. Recently, they brought the case about Sarah Rutile, saying the government sold 30% stake from Sarah Rutile. And we learned from the former minister, who was a finance minister by then, and the former flag bearer of the APC party, I think it was about 7% stake. And this was even tax owed to the government, but the company was in a bad fit, they couldn't pay, so they paid in kind, in shares. So because
let me ask you on that same basis, how did you get to hear that?
How did I get to hear that? I heard it from the report from the COI.
From the COI, which means that the minister or the person responsible at the time did submit himself or herself to the COI. That's how they got that report. So
it doesn't submit himself. To submit himself is that he has to appear. It doesn't.
No, Mr. Mohamed. I think we're conflating, here two issues. You don't necessarily have to appear because the commission does not have the strength, does not have the constitutional authority, because it's not criminal to force people to appear. Okay, but people are sending representatives and speaking through representatives. I'm talking about legal representatives. This in itself is submitting to the commission because it is a legal commission.
No, not at all, Brother Prince. They're not submitting. Sending your legal representative is to clarify facts. They went there and they clarify some issues that for the benefit of the general public.
Why would you be clarifying something to a commission or to an entity that you don't recognize in the first place? I thought you would just ignore them because, according to you, it is unconstitutional and we are not subjecting ourselves, here to a kangaroo. This is in inverted commas, court, according to what I'm understanding you saying. But therefore, these same people have got representatives. The moment that you've got representatives in your behalf, lawyers, you're paying them, technically, you are subjecting yourself to the commission. You're just taking advantage of the fact.
Let me give you another typical example, Brother Prince. Like, for instance, if somebody accuse you that you attack them in their house, you never attack them, but your lawyer will go there, even if you don't subject yourself to that particular court or whatever. But it's your right for your lawyer to go there and state, because this particular court is being supported by the Sierra Leone Court of Justice. So it's the responsibility for our ministers to go send their lawyers there to go and make the case that we don't recognize. That's why Ademako, that's always his first statement, that my client does not recognize the legality of this court.
Superman, I will leave this, I will leave this to public opinion to adjudicate on that particular issue. But it is of my opinion, people can say opinion, but yes, I do have one, and it is of my opinion that you've just mentioned it in the statement you just made, that it is supported by another higher court. So therefore, it does have jurisdiction over the people that it is summoning, because refusing to accede to the court's demand, okay, or to the commission's demand, will put you into immediate trouble. That's why you are sending legal representation there. Because if you did not recognize it in the first place, there is most obvious that you will not be sending representative. You will just turn your back. And the implication of the opposite is, if you don't attend or you don't send legal representation, then you become a wanted person. And I believe the powers will be justified for you to either be arrested or something of that nature. But we'll leave that, like I said, to public opinion. But what
thank you very much, Brother Prince. Let me just clarify one thing out of this one. The court himself, according to Justice Biobelli, says even if you don't send legal representative, even if you don't go there, they haven't got the right to call you. They will not force you. So they could sit in your case in absentia. And
Mr. Mohamed,
it's not a criminal offense in its first.
Mr. Mohamed,
I just want to correct that.
No, Mr. Mohamed, we're going in circles. The Justice Biobelli said that even if you don't attend, they will still sit in absentia. In other words, this commission has got some power. The power is not to arrest you, because at the end of the entire exercise, it's going to make a submission. And based on that submission, that's what is going to be dealt with in the legal confines or legal sense. That is what he's saying. He's got some power. Anyway, let's move on. Corruption, that we are talking about, I want to point out to the former administrative manager of the Petroleum Directorate, Mr. Raymond Kabu. You're a man who is cluing on these things that are happening back there, and I'm sure the name does ring a bell. He was paid off as gratuity and pension, okay? But then he was later rehired. Is that not a case of corruption of the highest kind, Mr. Kamara?
Well, I want to bring your attention that that's even happened in the Western world. It happens. Like, for instance, it's because of expertise. Somebody could retire, it's been paid off and everything, and the same company goes into some sort of expertise crisis. They could go back to you and rehire you again and start all over. So it doesn't buy you.
You're drawing an hypothetical to Freetown, to Sierra Leone, which is not the case. That's hypothetical what you're saying. Yes, it does happen here, but under a different circumstances. Because what I've been made to understand with this particular former admin director that I'm talking about of the Petroleum Directorate is he was paid over 2 billion leones, okay? And that was supposed to see his back. Yes, you can come back in a different capacity, just like what you're saying, what happens here, but this was not the case, sir. This was not the case. So I'm asking you again one more time, Mr. Kamara, is this not a typical form of corruption? Because this is a case that's been heard. So I'm just asking you for your view based on the facts that are available as at present, that he was paid this money, as a pension, gratuity, and benefit for his term of office. And then he was re-employed by the same company in the same capacity.
Yeah, but Prince, I don't know whether if you understand what I was trying to say here. Like, for instance, now I could hire, or you could hire me as the media director for Then and Now Media Empire. Then I've worked for you for over the years and everything, and I've retired, and you've paid me all my gratuity and my pension and everything. Then I left the job, and for some reason, you couldn't get somebody else to do that particular job. You needed somebody else. You could come back to me and said, okay, Mr. Kamara, can you come back? We'll come back as a new employee with on a new contract, new arrangements. That's perfectly legal. There's nothing corrupt about that. That's what I'm saying. Everywhere in the world, it's perfectly legal.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but this is hypothetical. You're not saying by any chance that this is what happened in the case of Mr. Raymond Kagbo. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, that's what I'm not saying that's what happened, but according to what you asked me, I'm just saying to you that could happen. I don't know the specific agreement with Mr. Kagbo, but that could happen. So unless we have the specific nature about all the agreements and arrangements, it's difficult for us to make any clear judgment in that particular issue. That's what I'm trying to highlight.
Okay, it's certain that it is a case that's being looked at as we speak right now. Let me make progress. Mr. Bedo Alpha Kamara, all the way from Brazil. Welcome to the show, my brother. Let's talk about the MPs that were thrown out of parliament. Was it fair or was it unfair?
Absolutely unfair.
Why?
It was. In fact, it was a shame on our democracy in that country.
Yes, but before you dwell into that, I just want for us to talk about the legal circumstances, and you are tuning in terms of legality. When you say unfair in a legal sense, illegal sense, why do you say it was unfair?
Because we all know what happened was a kangaroo court sitting, fabricating evidence that are not even there. Some people were accused of receiving money from the consolidated fund when they have never worked for government. So how could they get money from the consolidated fund? So that, and we know people who have left, they've got all the papers, they've left their job over 2 years. They've got all the legal papers and everything. And these people were still they're still receiving money from the consolidated fund. We know now that there is a gentleman who works in one of the banks whom it was alleged that he was making all this fake bank receipt that payment was going into these people's accounts that these people don't know even completely about. For instance, again, let me give you an example. I'm working for you, Mr. Prince. I said I'm going to leave January. You gave me paper that you sign it that, okay, Mr. Kamara has left this job since January. I've gone. So how could you come around and tell me that, oh, Mr. Kamara, since you've left January, I was paying you that you don't know about, you didn't withdraw any money from there. It's actually a joke. I mean,
Mr. Kamara, you can't be making a mockery of the justice system in the country. And I'm sure that's not what you're trying to say. But if these people were removed, on the legal basis, which you are saying you're denying that the process itself was illegal, that somebody was fixing fake receipts and the rest of it, where are the lawyers? Are there no lawyers? Because right now, as we speak, APC has got a batch of lawyers that are making representation for their former officials left, right, and center. So how could they be accused on this basis in which documents are the essential component of the burden of proof on the part of the government that's bringing the case against these people?
Yes, Brother Prince, the lawyers are there. The lawyers don't make the judgments. The judges do. And
I do agree. That's basic. It's the judges that make the judgment in the final end. But what I'm saying is, you are, if I understand, inferring that fake documents were being fixed, that these people were still being paid whilst they were not being paid. Are there no documents to that effect?
That's what I'm saying to you. That's what I'm saying. The whole judicial process was compromised. Because I'm saying to you now, because I saw the document myself firsthand. But I'm giving you the other example. The other gentleman has not even worked for the government. So how could he receive money? He's never had a job with the government in the first place. So you are accusing me, okay, Mr. Kamara, I've been paying you money. I've never worked for you. So how could you say I've been paying you money? You've never given me a job. So that's what I'm saying. There's no way you can see any clear justice
So
here. I
we
mean,
will
even the
take it.
layman
So we will
say,
take
well, I
it
mean, this
that
is funny.
the justice system was compromised. That's what Mr. Kamara is saying. And Mr. Alhaji Mahmoud Kamara, just to answer to your question, whether I know these details, I've spoken a lot. I don't know, and I'm not following the track consistently. I don't know which exact question you're trying to ask me on which, but remember, I'm just asking the questions to my guest. Some of the things I'm well clued in. Some of them, they are just brief. So I hope that is clear. And back to you, Mr. Kamara. And if anybody knows or has the contact of Mr. Stevens, Mamadou Stevens, will they please ask them, to still try and contact then and now, because we really like to know or hear from him. Ladies and gentlemen, this was one of the guests that we were meant to speak to today. And this was a guy who got famous within 4 minutes, of speaking during a protest held in the streets of London when the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, visited the country recently. And he was meant to appear on this show tonight, but for some reason we haven't heard from him, not seen him yet. So if anybody is in contact, will you please let him know that we are waiting? Mr. Kamara, based on what you're saying, from what we've heard, the All People's Congress have just been making a big fuss out of nothing. In other words, they have had the justice system, some of the results just read by the justice system, which we are accusing, of bias and being unfair, had many cases won by the All People's Congress. But we never hear that. The public, seldomly hear that. What we are hearing is mostly what you people feel aggrieved about. And then it will sound to the public that like they've been misled, So why not do the public justice by, first of all, talking about what achievements you've had within the justice system, and then highlight what you feel as injustice from the same justice system?
Well, what we're saying is, in terms of justice, justice has to be justice across the board. You cannot say because Mr. Y won case 1, so automatically he should lose case 2. If the justice is that he should win case 2, he has to win case 2, case 3, case 4, because the evidence are quite clear there. Like I gave you earlier on, somebody who has never worked for government is being accused of receiving money from consolidated fund. How could that happen? That's impossible. And let me go again to this issue. I mean, the issue, don't forget, the APC party petitioned 32 candidates, and that petition was never even given the day in court. There are many, many instances we saw that quite clearly. Even the injunction by the time they wanted to vote for the speaker, when this parliament sat the first time, we saw hastily made up injunction preventing APC members of parliament to vote for a speaker. We know some of them ones, they're quite open. I mean, sometimes we try to be diplomatic, but we have to say the truth as we see it. It's quite open that the justice system has been compromised by these cases. I mean, and it's really sad because the justice system, it should be one of the pillars of our democracy in that country. Like I said again, I mean, for instance, the fundamentals of our country, since we had a democracy, should be democracy, freedom, and justice. So we can only have justice through the judicial system. If it is compromised, then it is very, very sad and unfortunate. And
so we've had another contribution from Alhaji Mahmoud Kamara, which says that the justice system is a mockery in the country. The case of KKY, that's Dr. Kane Kole Yumkela, versus APC regarding Tusim is still in court.
Well, I'm telling you, you see, like I said, justice delays, justice denied. There are so many, many other issues. And even these cases against the MP, the time limit has expired. You can only petition within the 4-month time limit. And these cases were dealt with over a year. That even goes against the Constitution again. So how many times are they going to bastardize the Constitution? And the Constitution should be the final arbiter of the law in the country. So, it's...
Okay, Mr. Kamara, we'll take your view, and Mr. Kamara's view, obviously, I will re-echo, is like there is a mockery of the justice system and it's politicized. In most cases, it has gone against them. The SLPP injuncted 16 of their parliamentarians, and a good number of them lost their seats, and the case was heard. As opposed to APC, injuncting 31 or 32 of the parliamentarians, the SLPP parliamentarians, and those cases have still not been heard by the court. Is that correct before I move on, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we hearing now they saying, oh, well, there was team missing or B missing. You know, it's just, it's really sad. It's really sad because this is the 21st century. Our country should be moving forward. We should not allow anything that we undermine our democracy. Our democracy should be the driving machine to move our country forward. But if we start undermining it, then development is really on the tented hooks. I mean, it's really unfortunate. But we hope things will get better.
The people will be saying, Mr. Kamara, that you are not the person, you know, you're not morally fit to be saying this in terms of where you belong politically. Because during your tenure in office, you will be accused, or you've been accused many a times, you know, of making a mockery out of the system. They could name several things that were done during that period. So if you are saying it now, they will have a problem, you know, taking lectures from you.
That's absolutely not the case. I mean, people need to understand that I wouldn't say the previous government hasn't got their mistakes, they've got their mistakes. But the weight of the mistakes, the things that's happening now, I mean, we haven't seen them. I mean, this is unprecedented in the whole world. For real, when you can see a government on seats, 9 members of parliament, and within an hour, swearing in people who are not elected by the people. You know, this is bad for democracy. It shouldn't happen anywhere in the world.
On all of these issues, I believe there's a thread of sanity left. There's a thread, just a thread of morality left. And these issues will not go away. They cannot be swept under the carpet. They will have to be dealt with. That's why a peace conference was necessary. But people are saying, like, the timing, you know, was just not right. I want to move on. You know, we've spoken about the protest, you know, on the 31st, which has been dubbed as Red Day. You call it a Red Day, and it became a double X Red Day. And part of it, you know, became the anthem in London when the president visited. The question I want to ask you is, the president was here on some serious business, Mr. Kamara, okay? He was here on a trade and investment forum between the United Kingdom and the Republic of Sierra Leone, with a high-powered, heavy delegation to talk trade with the UK and potential investors, which obviously was to benefit the country. Your protest, the question to you, was your protest properly timed? Because it seemed to have disrupted the effort of the president with those gruesome placards that you held in the streets of London. Was it not harming the country, the interests of the country? In other words, was the protest properly timed? This was meant for Mr. Stevens, but since I haven't got him and you are here, I'm sure you can address this, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Brother Prince. But first of all, it's not my protest. This is a protest by concerned Sierra Leoneans. With the, apparently, even when Mr. Stevens spoke, he said they had SLPP concerned Sierra Leoneans, APC concerned Sierra Leoneans, NGC concerned Sierra Leoneans, all shapes and sizes, all political parties were represented.
I agree that it was a protest, you know, because I heard Mr. Stevens spoke, and I agree it was a protest by concerned Sierra Leoneans, so it was dubbed. But I know your position because you've made it clear that you are one of those who will love, you know, to protest against the visits, to make it known to the president that things are not going right. So what I'm trying to say is, like, you stand with the protesters. Is that correct, sir?
I stand with the protesters, absolutely. And these protesters are across the board in Sierra Leone political persuasion. You know, it's not one political party, it's nearly all political parties we did. They are concerned in what is happening in the country because they're saying democracy is being completely ruined, bringing down, and they know about the economic hardship and the constant political intimidation and all sorts of things.
Mr. Kamara, you've made this point, and I think most people are chiming in with you. But the question that I want you to address is the timing of the protest. I'm not saying the cause of the protest, which we know because they've stated it. The spokesperson said why. He said a lot of things, you know, about why they were hosting the protest. Some of them I would like to make, I would like to read on to you. Although I know you already know, he talked about the things that you've spoken of, which is sackings of officials, you know, and the injustices, justice delayed, which is justice denied, good governance, and the rest of it. So we do know these things. I am saying that the president was here with a high-power delegation visiting the UK on a trade and investment forum, which was meant to benefit the country, which you speak for so dearly. So the question here is, was the protest, the timing of the protest, was it appropriate? Looking back, do you think it could have been done at any other time away from that? Because it seems like the protest did have some, some setbacks, and was captured live by international audiences. Do you have, or do you think that it could have been held at a different time other than that time when the president was here trying to generate some income, potential investors for the country?
Thank you very much, Brother Prince. But I want to draw your attention. A few years back, the former the former foreign minister, no other person other than Dr. Ali Kabar, led a protest. That was a SLPP-based protest in New York when Sierra Leone was going through the Ebola outbreak, one of the biggest crises our country has ever been through. And by then, the president was there trying to, the former president was there trying to make the case to the international community to go and help rescue the country out of the Ebola outbreak, the Ebola epidemic, which is one of the biggest challenges that country has ever faced. So it's ironical for this government to say now, when concerned citizens went to go and protest, they say, no, this is not the right time. The right time to protest is always now, because if issues like that, wherein people's livelihood, people's freedom, people's liberty are at stake, it is the responsibility of any concerned Sierra Leonean to raise their voice, not to be complicit with what is happening in the country, to raise their voice, to say what is happening, we are not in support of it, we are against it, and they should bring it to the attention of the international community. That's why I supported them. Absolutely, I think they did the right thing. I think they were patriots. I think we should commend them for their efforts, for their courage, because I want to bring this to the attention of all people watching your show now, that people back in Sierra Leone haven't got the opportunity to protest. We saw one of the civil society activists who, you remember when the fuel price went up, this was just one man with his banner at St. John Junction. He tried to protest and he was manhandled by the police. That guy, his right was violated. He was manhandled by the police and taken to the police station. Just one man, So these Sierra Leoneans here in the United Kingdom has the liberty to protest in plight, in solidarity with their people back in Sierra Leone. I think it was very courageous. I think they've done Sierra Leone a massive favor, because this will bring the attention of the government to this particular issue. If the government is serious about moving Sierra Leone forward, I think they should look at what these protesters highlighted and try to deal with these issues as fairly as possible, and try to bring national unity and cohesion and stop the constant political intimidation. This is not good for the country. It's not good for the image of the country, because don't forget, Brother Prince, these companies will not go and invest in the country. They have to do what they call due diligence. They will have to check whether that country is suitable. And political stability is one of the key aspects of a due diligence that they have to do. And now we will see recent indexes that coming down, that Sierra Leone is sliding backwards in the peace index. And I always want to remind you that in the last 10 years of the last administration, Sierra Leone is the most peaceful. It was referred to as the most peaceful country in West Africa.
Mr. Mohamed, yes, you said, okay, Mr. Stevens is around, he's about to come live. Okay, I'll be wrapping up, Mr. Stevens, if you can hear me, I'll be wrapping up the interview with Brother Mohamed pretty soon. He said a lot, and he's covered a lot of ground. So I will be wrapping it up with him soon. But this is the question, Mr. Mohamed, or before the question. A lot of people will say that the recent visit of the head of state was a highly successful one in many respects, depending on which side of the lens you're looking at things. He was invited, at the Queen's birthday party. That's a huge take, to walk within the confines of those kind of places. He visited number 10. And these visits were not ordinary visits, because this was almost the equivalent of a state visit, not actually a state visit, but almost the equivalent. He got $30 million, although some people were saying that 30 million was always there as defeats. But the idea that we heard from the UK spokesperson was to provide incentive to water the ground to encourage investors to come on the ground. So in many respects, they will see this visit as a successful visit. What is your take?
Yes, thank you.
In terms of the president's visit.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a patriotic Sierra Leonean. I want the president to be successful. I want him to be here and be very, very successful because it's good for the betterment, for the progress of Mama Salone. That is very good. I'm always wishing him best. I'm hoping for the best. And I want this government to be very, very successful so that my country will move forward. Again, the only thing that I have concern is that you cannot move the country forward if you don't follow the basic rule of law in your country, which is respect the rule of law, respect human rights, avoid intimidating, harassing, and victimizing opposition members, and so on and so forth. So we are just calling for the basic things to happen in Sierra Leone. We believe if all those things happen, Sierra Leone and the president will be in a better position to move the country forward. It should allow the opposition parties to be opposition parties to hold him to account.
I'm fast running out of time, so I want for you to deal with these issues. You know, you touch on it briefly, and I want for you to touch on them again briefly because this is a complex one. And Mr. Stevens, if you are listening, you haven't actually joined the program as at yet because I'm seeing you, but I think you haven't joined the program. Okay, it's coming up now bit by bit, but you need to do something else. It's faded, so you need to do something else. You need to do some adjustments, Mr. Stevens, okay? Because I can see you now. You need to do more because I'm bringing you on soon. Ladies and gentlemen, just before I end this program with Mr. Mohamed, I have got one or two more questions that I want for him to touch on quickly. Please be informed that on Friday, there will be an interview here with a man who I spoke with yesterday. But of course, there were technical issues, so we have rescheduled that interview for Friday, this coming Friday. And this man is a very close confidant of the President of the Republic of Liberia. Remember that we've got many things in common. We are in the Mano River Union, we are in ECOWAS, we do share a border, we do business together and the rest of it, and we share ambassadors or embassies. So there are plenty of cultural backgrounds between us, intermarriages and the rest of it. So I've got this guy, and the topic is going to be whether the romance. Remember, George Weah won the elections hands down, a landslide majority. But many months on, people are jumping on the streets and protesting and calling for his resignation. So the question here is the romance finished, and we'll be having that man here on Friday. Don't forget to spread the good word. In the meantime, please share this video. I do understand that the other guest is now available. And Mr. Stevens, if you can hear me, I've seen your application there, but I think you need to do more because it's kind of faded, so something else needs to happen. Mr. Kamara, let's talk a little bit about economic stability, and I believe you're a student of economics, so there is a massive idea in terms of economics, economic stability and foreign exchange. Why is the country still feeling some doom and gloom in terms of economics? In other words, why is the economy still stable?
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Prince. That's very, very important. Like I said earlier on, the economy does not work on its own. It's all interlinked with other aspects of the states. And when this government came to power, what they did was to follow directives from the IMF to remove subsidies for the basic commodities like fuel and rice. And they also indirectly increased taxation by removing concessions that was helping the business community to flourish in terms of business in the country. So these issues combined with the political instability.
Well, some people will accuse you of hypocrisy. Yes, the government, did remove subsidy because those were conditions that they had to meet for going to the IMF and wanting the IMF money. and your government was going to do the same. And please don't tell the audience that you didn't take it back, because that was during elections time. So you could not go for those conditions at the time. But basically, on normal days, which you've done before, you will have done it. So to accuse this government now of doing just what you will have done, some people will see it as hypocrisy.
No, not at all, Brother Prince. It's not me. The government by then stated it quite clearly that they're not going to accept those particular conditionalities because it's not good for the economy.
Because elections was drawing near, Mr. Kamara, and that was going to be political.
We have to take them for their word, Brother Prince.
Sorry?
We have to take them for their word. We cannot
No, Mr. Kamara, yes, of course, we have to take them for their word. But it is clear, you need to fix it proper, I mean, you're moving now. I want us to keep it.
Just connect again, it's charging. Okay, yes, that's fine now.
Okay. Of course, we have to take them by their word, but the circumstances, there's something called circumstantial. The circumstances point to, because this is something they've done before. They've taken money before on conditions. This time the conditions were you have to remove subsidies from key components, which benefit the Sierra Leonean people. Two massive components or merchandise: petrol and rice, which is the staple food of the country. And that was political suicide had the government done it. So it's easy to see why the government could not accept those conditions just a few months to elections. That would have been political suicide for any government.
Yes, but Brother Prince, we are not trying to second guess why the government did it or did not do it. We cannot second guess. We have to take the facts as we see them. Because yes, they've worked with IMF before, but they've got different conditionalities, which they accepted and they worked with IMF. When these conditionalities came, they did say it quite clearly that we're not going to accept it, because what that would do, that would choke off the economy. And in the end, we're not going to get enough revenue. The Englishman said a quick pen is better than a slow shilling. So they knew that if they do that, they fail as the engine of the economy. That's going to choke off. There's going to be massive inflation, and it's not going to work in the end.
Okay.
But they even advised this current administration not to, I alluded to it when I started, not to accept those conditions. IMF, you can negotiate with them.
Point taken, Mr. Kamara, and well said. So the economic stability or instability of the country, economics-wise, is still tied to the foreign exchange. These are all mechanisms that are kind of tied together.
Yes, absolutely, because now we haven't got investment. I mean, since the collapse of the price of the iron ore, some few companies pulled out. But what even escalates the situation, makes it worse for the business community, was the removal of the concession from the taxes and duties in the business community. So now the business community are having a double whammy. They're having to pay more taxes, they're having to pay more for commodities, for service and everything. So this is choking them off as well. So there is no new business is coming to the country. So we are lacking in foreign exchange and foreign currency coming into the country. And what did the government do? Instead of them tackling the root cause of the problem, they did what we call quantitative easing. They took millions of dollars from our reserve to boost the Leones. But we advise them that will never work, because what? Some people will come in and buy that dollar and disappear.
So what do you think will have worked? Yeah, so quantitative easing was probably the only option left. I don't know whether you will agree with that, but you don't agree. What would you have done had you been in that particular position at the time?
Yes, okay, what I would have done is to encourage business, because business creates employment and brought liquidity into the country. I would have made sure I don't remove the concessions on the taxes and duties, so they would have stayed the same. Then I would have tried to work amicably with all opposition to create political stability, because only political stability can create a conducive climate for investors to come into the country. Don't forget,
some people could say, and rightfully so, because of what you've just alluded to, that there is instability, and this has been created by the opposition party willfully, because they know in so doing, the government is going to be in a difficult situation, and probably that will be a tool for the government to be forced to come on the table here to sit down and talk with the opposition.
No, not at all, Brother Prince. How can anybody allege that the opposition will want the government to remove their members of parliament? The opposition wants the government to imprison their members. The opposition wants the government to steal elections from them. Not at all. That's not the case at all. It's quite clear that the government is hell-bent on focusing on the opposition. You can see the supporters of the government, instead of them focusing in governing, they're always focusing on the former president, on APC. That's not the job. Their job is to govern. They should focus on the issues, on policies, and try to bring in policies that will create a good economy.
If the former president, who still by many measures still remain highly popular, is not really quiet in the sense he's up and about, which is his right, but he's definitely a distraction. And if you were in power and the former president is all over the place, for every time he appears, there's a crowd of people chanting and singing, your slogans in his behalf and anti-slogans against the government, sure enough, you will have to do something about that, isn't it, Mr. Kamara?
Not at all, Brother Prince. That is a democratic state. It is the right of the people to sing or praise anybody they want to praise. It's the right of the president to move, the former president, to move from point A to point B. So that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't concentrate on things like that. You believe you brought in the right policies, do the right thing, the country is going to move forward, and the people will be praise singing for you. So the people are praise singing for the former president because he did things to better the lives of the people. So this is what we are saying. So this is what we are saying.
Kamara, one final question to you. As we speak, Bintu Mani 3 did not work, because had it worked, we'll be saying something different. And the fact is, the reason why the conference was called, of course, the headliner was peace. So if the conference was not successful by the measure of many, many Sierra Leoneans, then obviously the country is still not in peace. So what are you advocating for, or what would you be advocating for, both from your position of strength as an opposition party member and from a patriotic sense? What would you be advising this government to do to get government going and relieve the people of the burden which is on them right now?
Thank you very much. That's very, very important. And for people, I'm speaking on this behalf as a patriotic Sierra Leonean. I'm begging the government to focus on key issues, to forget about this constant harassment, intimidation, and victimization of opposition members. The opposition has the right to hold the government to account. That is their responsibility, to hold the government to account. So critiquing the government is not a crime. It's the job. So they have the right to do it. Let the government let them do it. Like I'm speaking now to you, a few days ago when they went and arrest members of the opposition, people who were even injured were put in cells. How can you have somebody who is injured and you still put him into a cell? You should take them to your hospital. All of those sort of things, like I'm saying to you now, even the national publicity of the opposition, APC party, they said there is a wanted something against him for just saying that they're not going to agree. I mean, the statement he made was very, very benign, and now they said he's wanted. Can you imagine when we know the current deputy minister of the interior and the national public secretary of the government said worse when they were in opposition? The videos are going on what he was saying. Nobody put a warrant of arrest for him or put a ransom to arrest him, nothing like that. You see, so this is, they should forget about that.
Have you spoken to Mr. Devo lately?
No, I haven't spoken to him. But I mean, it's all clear now. We all see what happened, the request for the ransom by the police put out. And that it's in itself a danger the life of a citizen, a peaceful citizen who is an executive member of the main opposition party. So this is not painting a good picture.
What is the case against Mr. Devo?
Well, they allege he made instigating statement of some sort, which we don't know which statement it was exactly, but they said that the statement instigates and it will tantamount to insecurity of some sort. But I just want to bring your attention to the current deputy minister of the interior. When he was in opposition, he made a statement in national media openly, even insinuating the military should take over, should overthrow the government. But nothing happens to him, because the government was accommodating. They know this man is speaking on behalf as the national publicity secretary of his party. You know, so
Okay.
sometimes for the benefit of peace and security of national cohesion, you have to take an holistic approach and knows that this will not bring about peace and security and national cohesion. So we are pleading with the government to please respect the rule of law, do the right thing, govern the country, forget about the opposition, be the daddy in the room and govern for the betterment, for peace and security in the country, for development in the country, and for even for the advantage of the government as well. So that's our plea as a
Kamara, on that note,
Leone.
on that note, it's a very, very high note. Do the business of government, govern rightfully, take into account the citizens' right, relax the rules, encourage opposition, sit down and talk peace. I think the people will have heard your message today loud and clear. As usual, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mr. Mohamed Kamara, aka Supermed, a very special contributor to this particular forum, then and now TNN Media Empire. And Mr. Kamara, thank you very much once again for appearing on the forum.
Thank you very much, Brother Prince, for having me. And it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my brother. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Mr. Stevens. I'm not able to get him as yet, but Mr. Stevens or anyone listening to the program right now, will you please tell Mr. Stevens to contact the number, the alternative number that I gave him earlier, so that we can do a telephone instead of a photographic interview or video interview. So let him call the number that I gave him earlier on, please.
This is the things I do. Yes, I. For me country, green, white, and blue. I know say the bell of them over yonder no go party. Go don't bother that. Right you know we on girl we come together as one. For we country flag.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody is hearing this conversation right now, will you please tell Mr. Stevens to call the number that I gave him earlier on? Thank you.